What's 1 week of a hype chapter for Four Knights of the Apocalypse? 2 chapters, 2 weeks in a row with hype chapters for Four Knights of the Apocalypse. And this one is no different. We get the fight between Ironside and Bon. Bon is obviously going to flex how strong he actually is. We get some information on Lancelot in this chapter, which is something I am all been too keen and excited to hear. And some key information on how this whole war has been going on in the Four Knights of the Apocalypse story. But before we get into the actual video, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps and ensures you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel as well. Also, it seems that December is around the time of year where we get like a chapter once every 2 weeks due to certain breaks. So I'm going to be planning out some future videos and discussions for Four Knights of the Apocalypse in those break weeks. So be prepared to see that in place of chapters when they're on break. Now then, let's get right into the video. So chapter 130 of Four Knights of the Apocalypse, aptly titled, The Fox Sin of Greed, with Bon being the cover image, obviously. So we start off where our last chapter left us, where Bon just hits Ironside, and it's shown that he just flung the guy straight into the air. Pelgard is in disbelief as to what just happened, and Bon just lunges forward and goes above Ironside in the air and smacks him down into the ground. Ironside, at the last second, uses his wind magic to make himself float, as he then begins to ask how Bon knew about their location. As Bon just opens up his jacket, revealing a bottle of ale, just says, "It was just a coincidence, man. I just came here to drink some ale." As that's how things go, I guess. And it also kind of makes sense because of what Bon is about to say. But yeah, we're in Vanya. He said that the ale here is the best in all Britannia. And I like how Ironside's just like, wait, you mean this was all just a coincidence? And I love how Bon just mentions that it's great that I finally get to see your face in person, because you guys have been lurking in the shadows trying to avoid the sins. Which is a really nice thing to do, because we were all wondering for the past 2 years, Arthur has been taking the land of Britannia, taking people, taking villages and all that, and fighting basically every other kingdom that's fighting them. And we're wondering how they haven't fought the sins yet, or if they fought the sins and it just landed in standstills. And this is a really nice piece of information because it shows that they were actually doing their absolute best to avoid the sins for as long as they possibly could. Which, as we'll see later in this chapter, does make some sense as to why they were trying to avoid them. Pelgard, another Chaos Knight on a Pegasus, I believe, are asking if Ironside is alright and if they want them to join the fight. But Ironside tells them that there's no need and that he'll take care of Bon himself. He then begins to do a chant as he says, "Come to me, Jinn," as we get a nice image of a giant wind elemental surrounding and guarding Ironside, facing down Bon. As Bon has never seen this before, as Ironside goes on to explain that Arthur himself ordered them to avoid direct combat with the deadly sins, but he himself was never a great fan of that order, showing just how confident he is in his abilities and just thinks pretty highly of himself, if I'm being honest. Which, yeah, up until this point in the story, he has been a threat to the main cast, but he's facing Bon here. He's facing a hero of legend. And Ironside goes on to say, especially when it comes to a human like you, I'm not following this order. He might be a hero of legend, but let's see how far apart our abilities actually are. As he goes on to say that he has elemental protection. And Bon does think about Jian. Just got a shiver up my spine just now. Anyway, Ironside says that he is an elemental master, not to compare him to someone with just paltry elemental control. And he says he's going to show you the difference between high-level and low-level elemental users, as he then does his signature cross attack to hit Bon, as we see throughout this page that he's using the winds to break apart the area around him and Bon, as he says that Jinn is the leader of the sylphs, the wind spirits, and anything in his mighty winds in all creation are battered to a clump like it was paper. As we then see at a full page, this Jinn using Concerto of Wind as he begins to attack Bon, hitting him with a huge amount of wind at the edge of the area that they're on the edge of a cliff. As we see Pelgard and the other knight are witnessing Jinn just engulfing this area in just a massive wind. Ironside goes on to say, "You may have dodged it last time, Bon, but lightning won't strike twice. You will be sliced to ribbons by the mighty Jin." As he does his classic barrage of his cross attacks, Pyre before the silence, Belfast Margit, and launches them straight at Bon, like he did in the previous chapter. And Bon seemingly gets hit square on by this attack. And we see the aftermath as it completely eviscerates everything that it touched in this area. And Ironside and everyone are like, did King Bon just bite the dust? Is he dead? And Pelgard is questioning what's going on here as one of the other knights is praising Ironside. But then Ironside sees in the smoke coming out in disbelief, saying that it's not possible. As he wonders what kind of a monster Bon actually is, as Bon is completely unfazed, save for maybe his coat. But he is uninjured, unfazed. And we all kind of understand Bon, he's incredibly durable, the most durable human on the planet, save for maybe Arthur, because we all remember, he spent centuries, if not a millennia, in purgatory while he was immortal as he adapted to the harsh and sheer environment in that area that would have killed him instantly, making him almost unhurtable and unkillable, despite him no longer being immortal. So it's fair to say that Ironside has no idea what's going on with Bon, and doesn't even know that information. As Bon is staring up at Ironside, he says, "So Ironside's your name, right? You're the only monster around here I see." As Bon lunges up to him, as Ironside asks Jin to protect him. But as Jin tries to block Bon with the wind, Bon just bolts right through up to Ironside's face, as he goes on to say, "Connected by blood or not, you casually tried to kill a child you once called your son. It's nothing any human being would do." As we get a brief flashback to 2 years ago after the death of Percival, as Lancelot came home to see his parents and went back to his home kingdom. Bon goes on to say that his own hell-raising kid suddenly came back 2 years ago, but he wouldn't look either him or Elaine in the eye, and he just stayed holed up in his room and cried by himself. As he goes on to say that he was so strong that he had never cried around anybody, but he kept sobbing, talking to himself the whole time about he couldn't protect the friend he held so dear. So Lancelot depression arc has started 2 years ago before the time skip. So yeah, in all honesty, Lancelot is definitely Percival's best friend. The two of them spent the most time together on screen, and they do have more of a brotherly bond, and it makes sense that this would hit Lancelot the hardest out of the main group, outside of Percival's main friend group. But still, the fact that he couldn't even look his parents in the eye and just sulked in his room crying, a character that we honestly think is at this point still pretty unbeatable, it's a nice humanizing moment. And it shows just how much Percival meant to Lancelot and how Lancelot took his death. And I'm curious to see, when we inevitably see him, how he is right now after 2 year time skip. Was he stuck in his room for 2 years just sulking, getting rusty, while everyone else is out on missions trying to push themselves aside and try and help in this war against Camelot? Or is he currently out there maybe going through a whole revenge arc, for all we know? I don't know, but I'm very curious to see what happens next. Also, Bon is a good dad, because up next we see him just kicking Ironside square in the gut, piercing his armor and dealing a critical blow, saying, "So here's a hit from him to you," as he launches Ironside in the air, destroying the Jin that was protecting him with the sheer impact, as Pelgard grabs Ironside in the air as he tells the other Chaos Knight to basically open up a portal to Camelot. Ironside says, "Look, I can still fight, what are you doing? I haven't lost yet," but Pelgard insists on them retreating as they end up teleporting back to Camelot. Now, in all honesty, this was definitely a one-sided fight. Now, do I think Ironside could still have fought? Yes, but he had a very big injury, so I doubt he would have done anything against Bon. Even though he's an elementalist, I doubt right now he has any abilities that would have actually hurt Bon, somebody whose body is capable of surviving purgatory. Something that no normal person or anyone could potentially survive. So, it's going to take a lot to kill Bon. But yeah, the Chaos Knights retreat, and Bon just opens up his bottle of ale, takes a good swig, and just says, "Man, the ale's tasting really special today. Why don't I go drink with the gang for a change?" As the chapter ends. So, with this ending of this chapter, is knocked by teasing us that Bon's going to go and meet the rest of the Sins right now? Honestly, this would be a really cool change of pace, building up for when we'll see the rest of the Four Knights of the Apocalypse in their main group post time skip. If we're just going to focus on the sins for the opening chapters before the year ends, I'm perfectly fine with it. It'll be a good chance for us to see how this war is going on, how it's affected each of them individually. Maybe if we cut the king in the end, we'll actually get to see their actual kids for once in the manga, say for one that's being showcased and advertised in the video game that's coming out potentially next year, or 2025 for all we know. I got no clue, but it is something I am very curious to see, and I don't think anybody would be opposed to seeing the sins taking the forefront for a few chapters before the story completely shifts back over to the actual main cast of the story to see how they're doing post time skip, and especially see who is going to be like the main lead of the group in the story until Percival's inevitable resurrection, because we all kind of see it coming. And how is Arthur going to basically set out his whole plan? Right now, one of the four evils basically got effortlessly taken out or beaten down by one of the 7 deadly sins. And there are still 3 Chaos Knights with Pelgard there, but he didn't join in. Maybe if Pelgard joined in, there probably would have been a bit more of an even match, but I do think Bond probably would have won. Because, obviously, if you're given an order not to essentially fight the strongest people on the planet, chances are your king kind of understands your power level. So they've been kind of sneaking around. Either way, this is a really good chapter. I like the action. I like how Bond just showcased his strength and basically essentially helped avenge Percival to an extent for Lancelot. His grudge was for his son, so Bond is obviously Anime Dad of the Year right now, but I gotta say, this was a really great chapter, some nice pieces of information. I like that we got a check in on Lancelot post Percival death, even though it was before the time skip. It's still nice to see this, and a nice humanizing moment for Lancelot to show him actually breaking down and showcasing all of his emotions. And it makes me even more curious to see where he is right now in the story. But that's essentially it. I enjoyed this chapter, very good, and I cannot wait to hear what you guys think. Did you enjoy this chapter? Did you like the action? Did you like Ironside's abilities and how Bond basically utterly decimated him? How do you think the rest of the story is going to go? Are we going to focus on the sins, or are we going to cut back to the rest of the Four Knights of the Apocalypse? Let me know in the comments section down below. And if you haven't already, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps and shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel, and keeps me more motivated to make this content more consistently. And with all that said and done, I hope you all have an awesome day.